June 7th, 1943. 6 planes. Ilyushin, 2-4 aircraft. Lavochkin, 5-2 aircraft. Total killed 53. The handwriting is precise, methodical. Each letter formed with the care of a man who spent his youth balancing ledgers in his father's store. The ink has faded to brown over 80 years, but the words remain clear. Clinical, a bookkeeper's record of death. Today I should have died 40 times, but I didn't. The next line is different. The pen pressed harder here. You can see where it nearly tore through the paper. Fear is a weapon stronger than bullets. This is the diary of Günther Schack, a German fighter pilot who killed 174 men in the skies over Russia. A man who turned aerial combat into cold mathematics. A man who calculated death with the same precision he once used to count Reichsmarks in a cash register. And then after the war ended, he did something that shocked everyone who knew him. But before we get to Texas, before we get to the cowboy named Buck Williams, before we get to the 3 pieces of bacon that changed everything you need to understand who Günther Schack was, you need to understand how a quiet, bookish accountant who fainted at the sight of blood became one of the Luftwaffe's most efficient killers. Because that transformation is what makes what happened later so impossible to believe. The office smells of pipe tobacco and old paper. Günther Schack sits at a wooden desk covered in ledgers, his finger tracing down a column of numbers. He's 20 years old, thin, with round, wire-rimmed glasses that keep sliding down his nose. Outside the window, the cobblestone streets of Schweidnitz are busy with afternoon traffic. Horse carts, bicycles, the occasional automobile. His father stands behind him. Wilhelm Schack, 58 years old, built like a beer barrel with a thick mustache and hands that could crush walnuts. He leans over his son's shoulder and taps one thick finger on a line of red ink. You made a mistake, Günther. 12 Reichsmarks. If you cannot balance a simple ledger, how will you ever run this store? Günther looks at the number. His father is right. He forgot to record a small debt from the tailor on the corner. 12 Reichsmarks, less than the cost of a good pair of shoes. But in Wilhelm Schack's world, a mistake is a mistake, regardless of size. I'm sorry, father. I'll correct it. Wilhelm straightens up, his face hard. You're always sorry, but sorry doesn't put bread on the table. This store has fed our family for 3 generations. When I'm gone, it will be yours. And if you cannot manage something as simple as a ledger, what hope do you have? Günther says nothing. He dips his pen in the inkwell and makes the correction. His hand is steady. He's made thousands of entries like this, but his mind is elsewhere. On his desk, hidden beneath the accounts receivable ledger, is a book. Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Philosophy, the kind of thing his father considers useless daydreaming. But Günther reads it during lunch breaks and stolen moments when the store is quiet. He doesn't want to be an accountant. He wants to understand ideas, truth, morality, the nature of human existence. But it's 1937 in Germany. Philosophy doesn't feed families. The economy is recovering under the new government, but money is still tight. Everyone must do their part. And Günther's part is to count money and manage inventory until his father dies and he inherits the store. That's his future, written in ink as permanent as the ledgers that surround him. Until the letter arrives 3 days later. The envelope is official, heavy paper, the eagle and swastika embossed on the seal. Wilhelm opens it at the dinner table while Günther and his mother eat in silence. They know what it is before Wilhelm reads it aloud. Günther Schack, you are hereby called to serve in the Wehrmacht. You will report to the recruitment center in Breslau on April 1st, 1937, for processing and assignment. His mother's fork clatters against her plate. Wilhelm sets down the letter and looks at his son. For the first time in months, there's something like approval in his eyes. Good. The army will make you a man. Günther nods, but inside something cold settles in his stomach. He's heard the stories, the training, the discipline, the violence. He's never been in a fight in his life. When he was 12, he fainted watching his uncle butcher a chicken. Blood makes him nauseous. The thought of killing another human being is incomprehensible. But Germany is preparing for something. Everyone can feel it. The rallies, the speeches, the propaganda that blares from every radio. A storm is coming. And Günther, whether he wants to or not, will be caught in it. On the train to Breslau 3 weeks later, he reads the final chapter of his Kant book. The part about the categorical imperative, act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. He doesn't know it yet, but in 6 years that sentence will haunt him. Every single day, for 174 reasons. The Wehrmacht training facility outside Breslau is a collection of wooden barracks surrounding a muddy parade ground. 300 young men stand in rows stripped to their waists while officers walk between them, making notes on clipboards. This is the physical examination, the sorting, the separation of wheat from chaff. Gunther is in the third row. His ribs show. His arms are thin. Years of sitting at a desk have left him weak and pale. When they make him run 400 meters, he finishes last, bent over, gasping for air. When they make him lift weights, he can barely manage 40 kilograms. When they put him in the boxing ring with another recruit, he takes one punch to the nose and goes down immediately, blood streaming down his face, vision swimming. He vomits in the grass behind the gymnasium. Oberleutnant Hartmann finds him there 20 minutes later. Hartmann is 40, a veteran of the First War with a scar that runs from his left eyebrow to his jaw. He looks down at Gunther with something between pity and disgust. "Shack, report to my office." Gunther wipes his mouth and follows. The office is small, just a desk and 2 chairs. Hartmann doesn't sit. He stands at the window, hands clasped behind his back. "I'm going to be honest with you, Shack. You are not suited for military service. Your physical conditioning is poor. Your reflexes are slow. You have no fighting instinct whatsoever. I'm recommending you for administrative duty. Clerking, logistics. Something behind a desk where you won't get yourself or anyone else killed." Gunther should feel relief, but instead he feels something else. Shame. The same shame he saw in his father's eyes every time he made a mistake in the ledgers. The shame of inadequacy. "Sir, I applied for the Luftwaffe, the Air Force. I thought perhaps." Hartmann turns. His expression doesn't change. "The Luftwaffe. You think flying is easier than marching. The Luftwaffe requires physical excellence, mental toughness, and aggressive instinct. You have none of these qualities. My recommendation stands. Dismissed." Gunther salutes and leaves. That night in the barracks, he lies awake listening to the other recruits snore. Tomorrow they'll receive their assignments. He'll be sent to some supply depot to count boots and blankets. His father will be disappointed, but not surprised. Gunther, shocked, the boy who couldn't even slaughter a chicken, will spend the war in a warehouse. But then at 2 in the morning, lying in his bunk, something happens. Something small but significant. He makes a decision. He will not accept this. Not because he wants to fight, not because he believes in the growing madness that's consuming Germany, but because for once, just once, he wants to prove he's capable of more than counting other people's money. He will apply to the Luftwaffe again, and this time he will pass, even if it kills him. 3 months. That's how long Gunther gives himself. 3 months to transform his body. He wakes at 5 every morning and runs through the streets of Schweidnitz. At first, he can barely make it 2 blocks without stopping. But he keeps running every day. Rain or shine, his lungs burn, his legs scream. But he runs. He lifts bags of flour in the store's basement. 50 repetitions, then 100, then 200. His arms shake, his back aches, but he lifts. He finds a boxing club in a cellar beneath a beer hall. Rough men who work in the factories. They laugh at the skinny kid with glasses who walks in asking to learn how to fight. But the instructor, an old pugilist named Otto with a face like a clenched fist, takes pity on him. "You want to learn, fine, but you're going to bleed." Otto is right. Gunther bleeds. His nose breaks twice. His lips split. His ribs bruise purple and yellow. But he keeps coming back. He learns to keep his guard up, to slip punches, to take hits without folding. His father watches this transformation with confusion. "What's gotten into you?" Gunther doesn't answer. He just keeps training. In August, he applies to the Luftwaffe again. Second attempt, different examination board. He's added 15 pounds of muscle. His runtime has dropped by 30 seconds. When they put him in the boxing ring, he doesn't go down from the first punch. He stays up for all 3 rounds. The medical officer who reviews his file is a Hauptmann named Muller, older than Hartmann, grayer, but his eyes are sharper. "Shack, you applied before and were rejected. Now you're back. Why? Because I wasn't good enough then. I am now. Mueller looks at him for a long moment. Then he stamps the file. Conditional acceptance. Flight training begins in October. Don't make me regret this. Gunther doesn't make him regret it. But in 6 years, Gunther will regret it himself 174 times over. The Messerschmitt Bf-109 sits on the tarmac like a predatory bird. Silver fuselage. Black crosses on the wings. The propeller taller than a man. Gunther stands beside it with 11 other pilot candidates, all of them staring up at the machine that will either make them Luftwaffe pilots or kill them trying. Hauptmann Mueller walks down the line. He's been transferred to the flight school as an instructor. He stops in front of each candidate and looks them in the eye. Flying is not natural for human beings. We are not birds. We do not belong in the sky. Every time you climb into that cockpit, you are doing something that violates the laws of nature. And nature will kill you if you make a mistake. Not might kill you. Will kill you. If you cannot accept this fact, leave now. Nobody moves. Good. Then let's begin. The first weeks are classroom work, aerodynamics, engine mechanics, weather patterns, navigation. Gunther excels at all of it. The other candidates struggle with the mathematics, the physics, the calculations required to fly a machine traveling 300 kilometers per hour. But for Gunther, it's simple accounting, just different numbers. Then comes weapons training, live fire exercises with the aircraft's machine guns and cannon. They practice on ground targets first. Fabric screens painted to look like enemy aircraft. Most of the candidates aim for the center, bullseye shots, impressive to watch. Gunther aims for the engine, every time. While the others pepper the fuselage, he puts 3 rounds into the mock engine cowling and stops. Mueller calls him over after one session. Shack, why do you keep shooting the engine? The target is the whole aircraft. Sir, the target is making the aircraft unable to fly. A hole in the fuselage might not stop it, but 3 rounds in the engine will. Why waste ammunition on less efficient targets? The other candidates laugh. Mueller doesn't laugh. He looks at Gunther with something new in his expression. Recognition. Shack has just taught you all a lesson. Air combat is not about glory. It's not about looking impressive. It's about efficiency. It's about killing the enemy before he kills you. The pilot who wastes ammunition on style points is the pilot who runs empty when he needs it most. From that day forward, the other candidates stop laughing at Gunther. They start watching him instead, studying him, trying to understand how the quiet bookkeeper thinks about flying. And Gunther thinks about it the only way he knows how, as mathematics, as accounting. Every bullet is an expenditure. Every maneuver costs energy and altitude. Every second in combat it is borrowed time that must eventually be repaid. War is just another ledger, assets and liabilities, profit and loss. The currency is human life. And Gunther is about to become very profitable. The sky over Smolensk is the color of dirty wool. Gunther's Messerschmitt Bf-109 cuts through clouds at 4,000 meters, part of a flight of 6 escorting a formation of Junkers 88 bombers. Below the Russian steppes stretch endless and brown. Somewhere down there, armies are killing each other. Up here, for the moment, everything is quiet. Gunther has been at the front for 3 months. JG-51, Mulders, Jagdgeschwader 51, Fighter Wing 51, named after Werner Mulders, the legendary ace who died in a transport crash last month. Gunther has flown 27 missions without firing a shot. Patrols, escorts, reconnaissance, but no combat. Today that changes. The voice crackles over the radio. Break right, bandits, 4 o'clock, high. Gunther looks, 2 shapes diving out of the sun. Soviet I-16s, stubby, nimble, old, but dangerous in the hands of good pilots. They're going for the bombers. Training takes over. Gunther banks right, pulls the stick back, climbs to intercept. His wingman, a veteran named Carl Weber, stays with him. The I-16s split. One goes for the bombers. One comes straight at Gunther. Head-on pass. Both aircraft closing at 600 kilometers per hour combined speed. Whoever blinks first dies. Gunther doesn't blink. His finger rests on the firing button. Wait. The I-16 is growing in his windscreen. He can see the pilot now. Leather helmet, goggles, a human being. 300 meters. Wait, 200 meters. Now. Gunther presses the button. The Messerschmitt's 20-millimeter cannon hammers. 3 seconds. The recoil shudders through the aircraft. The I-16's engine explodes in white smoke and orange flame. The Soviet fighter drops spinning, one wing torn half off. It falls like a broken kite. Gunther doesn't watch it hit the ground. He's already turning, looking for the second one. But Karl has that one. It's burning too, streaming black smoke as it arcs toward the earth. The bombers continue on their mission untouched. When they land back at base 2 hours later, the mechanics swarm the aircraft, checking for damage, counting ammunition expended. Gunther climbs out of the cockpit. His flight suit is soaked with sweat despite the cold. His hands are shaking. Karl slaps him on the back. Your first kill. Well done. Gets easier after the first one. Gunther nods but doesn't speak. He walks behind the hangar and vomits into the frozen grass. He can still see the I-16 pilot's face. A man, someone's son, someone's brother, maybe someone's father. Now dead because Gunther pressed a button for 3 seconds. He thinks about Kant, about universal laws. If everyone acted as he just did, the world would be nothing but killing. Is that moral? Is that defensible? But he already knows the answer. No, it's not. But it's necessary. This is war, and in war, the categorical imperative doesn't apply. Only survival applies. That night, back in his quarters, Gunther opens a new notebook. Small leather bound, the kind he used to use for accounting. On the first page, he writes in careful script, October 15th, 1941. 1I-16, pilot unknown, much unknown, name unknown, number 1. He closes the book and puts it in his footlocker. Tomorrow there will be more missions, more killing, more numbers to record, but he will record them all, every single one. Because if he's going to kill men, he will at least have the decency to count them, to remember that each number was a person, even if he never learns their names. 14 months later, Gunther has 53 kills. He doesn't vomit anymore. He doesn't shake after combat. He's learned to compartmentalize, to separate the act of killing from the fact of killing. It's a necessary psychological trick. Without it, you go mad. He's seen it happen. Pilots who crack, who refuse to fly, who eat their pistols in the dark. Gunther doesn't crack. He just keeps counting. But today, the ledger will balance in a way he never expected. The mission is close air support for German infantry trapped in Stalingrad's northern suburbs. The Soviets are counterattacking. Armor, infantry, and air support. Lots of air support. The sky over the city is a nightmare of flak and fighters. Gunther and Karl take off together as Rottenführer and Rottenflieger. Leader and wingman. They've flown together for a year now. Karl is the better pilot, faster reflexes, better situational awareness. But Gunther is the better tactician. Together, they're effective. They've survived when better pilots have died. Over the city, they encounter a formation of 12 Ilyushin, 2 Sturmovix, flying tanks, armored ground attack aircraft that can absorb incredible punishment. Behind them, 6 Lavochkin, 5 escorts. The radio crackles. All aircraft engage. Keep them off the ground troops. Karl doesn't hesitate. He dives straight into the formation cannon blazing. It's the aggressive move, the fighter ace move, and it works. One Ilyushin breaks apart, another trails smoke. But Karl's aggression puts him in the middle of 6 angry Soviet fighters. Gunther sees it happening. Karl pulling up from his attack run. 2 Lavochkins diving on him from above. 2 more cutting off his escape. Karl's on the radio, voice tight with stress. I'm bracketed. Need support. Gunther calculates. If he dives to help Karl, he'll be outnumbered 4-1. His survival probability drops to 30%. Maybe less. The smart move is to climb, to escape, to live to fight another day. But Karl is his friend, his wingman, his only friend in this frozen hell. Gunther pushes the stick forward and dives. He comes in fast, nearly supersonic in the dive. The first Lavochkin never sees him. 3-second burst, it comes apart. The second one turns to engage, but Gunther is already past using his speed to blow through the formation. He pulls up hard, graying out from the G-forces, and looks for Karl. Karl's aircraft is burning. Smoke pouring from the engine, but he's still flying, still trying to escape. A third Lavochkin is on his tail firing in steady bursts, rounds walking up Karl's fuselage. Then the fuel tank goes. Orange fireball. The Messerschmitt's tail section separates. The aircraft tumbles. Gunther watches for the parachute, watches for Karl to bail out. The parachute never opens. The burning wreckage hits the ground in the center of Stalingrad, 3,500 meters below. Karl dies on impact if he wasn't already dead from the fire. Gunther shoots down the Lavochkin that killed him. Then he climbs out of the combat zone and flies back to base on autopilot, his hands and feet working the controls, while his brain processes nothing. When he lands, he goes straight to his quarters, opens his notebook, writes November 17th, 1942. 2 Lavochkin 5s, but lost Karl. Then he writes something he's never written before: the mathematics were wrong. Because that's what he's been doing all along. Treating war like accounting, calculating survival probability, managing risk, making the efficient choice. But Karl's death proves the flaw in his system. You can't calculate friendship. You can't put a number on loyalty. And if you try to reduce human relationships to mathematics, you end up alone. That night, Gunther sits on his bunk and makes a decision. He cannot afford friends anymore, cannot afford to care. If he's going to survive this war, he has to become what the Soviets already call him: a machine, cold, efficient, inhuman. From now on, he will calculate only for himself. He will trust no one. He will risk nothing for anyone. He will be the perfect killer, the perfect accountant of death, and he will survive even if it means dying inside. By the time the war ends, he will have 174 entries in his notebook, 174 men whose names he doesn't know, 174 deaths that he justified with mathematics. But the mathematics were wrong. And eventually, in a place he never expected, with people he never thought he'd meet, Gunther Schack will learn that the greatest equations aren't solved with numbers. They're solved with grace. The date is burned into aviation history. Operation Citadel, the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle ever fought. German armor smashing against Soviet defenses in an attempt to cut off a massive salient and destroy the Red Army's southern front. In the air, both sides are flying maximum effort missions, hundreds of sorties per day. The sky over Kursk is more dangerous than anywhere else on Earth. Gunther Schack, now a lieutenant and Staffelführer of a 12-aircraft unit, takes off at 10:15 in the morning with his wingman Heinrich Bauer. Their mission is patrol, watch for Soviet ground attack aircraft, protect German positions. At 10:30, Heinrich's engine starts leaking oil, pressure dropping, temperature rising. If he doesn't land immediately, the engine will seize and catch fire. Heinrich's voice is apologetic over the radio. "Lieutenant, I have to return to base." Gunther confirms. "Regulations say you never fly alone. Too dangerous. Without mutual support, a single fighter is vulnerable to being swarmed. But the mission must continue. German armor is advancing. Soviet aircraft will be coming. Heinrich, go. I'll continue patrol. But sir, regulations. Regulations won't save you from a burning engine. Go." Heinrich banks away, limping back toward base. Gunther continues alone. 5 minutes later, he sees them. On the horizon, a dark smudge against the pale blue sky. Growing larger, he counts. 10, 20, 30, 40, possibly 50. A massive formation of Il-2 Sturmovix flying in tight wedge formation. Around them, circling like sharks, at least a dozen Lavochkin 5 fighters. The radio is silent. No other German aircraft in the area. No support available for at least 15 minutes. By then, those Sturmovix will be over German positions, dropping bombs, firing rockets, killing hundreds of men. Gunther runs the calculation. 1 aircraft versus 60, survival probability near 0. Smart move, disengage. Report the formation. Let someone else handle it. But those German soldiers below don't have 15 minutes. So Gunther makes the calculation that defies all mathematics. He pushes the throttle to maximum power points, the nose down, and dives straight into the center of the Soviet formation. What happens next will be analyzed by military historians for decades. 6 minutes of aerial combat that should have been impossible. 1 man against an air regiment. The transcript of Gunther's combat report, filed the next day, is dry and factual. But the men who saw the Sturmovix return to base scattered in panic, their formation broken, tell a different story. They say the German aircraft appeared from nowhere, diving vertically at terminal velocity. They say it shot down the formation leader with a 3-second burst and then vanished into the smoke. They say it reappeared underneath the formation where the rear gunners couldn't fire without hitting their own aircraft. They say it shot down a second Ilyushin by targeting the oil cooler. A perfect shot. Surgical. They say 2 Lavochkins tried to engage it, but the German pilot did something insane. He deployed his landing flaps and cut his throttle, decelerated so rapidly that both Lavochkins overshot. Then he accelerated again, got behind them, and shot both down within 10 seconds. They say the German flew through his own tracer fire, flew through explosions, flew so close to other aircraft that collision seemed inevitable, yet never got hit. 6 minutes, 6 Soviet aircraft destroyed, the formation scattered, the attack broken, bombs dropped uselessly into empty fields. Mission failed. When Gunther lands at 10:57, his wingman Heinrich is there with the ground crew. They swarm the aircraft checking for damage. They find nothing. Not a single bullet hole. Not a scratch. Gunther climbs out of the cockpit. His flight suit is drenched with sweat. His hands are trembling so badly he can't unbuckle his harness. The crew chief, Obergefreiter Hans, has to help him out. Gunther walks away from the aircraft, sits down in the grass, and lights a cigarette with shaking hands. Heinrich approaches carefully. Lieutenant, what happened up there? Gunther takes a long drag. Exhales smoke. His voice when he speaks is quiet. Flat. I didn't beat them, Heinrich. I scared them. They thought they were being attacked by an entire squadron. They panicked. Fear did the work. Not me, but that's not entirely true, and they both know it. Fear was part of it. But the real reason Gunther survived is the same reason he's survived every mission since Stalingrad. He calculated the mathematics of death with perfect precision, and he discovered that fear, uncertainty, and chaos are forces that can be weaponized just as effectively as bullets. That night, he opens his notebook, writes July 6, 1943, 6 aircraft, Ilyushin 2-4, Lavochkin 5-2, total 53 kills. Then he writes, today I should have died 40 times, but I didn't. Why not? Because I'm good. Because they were more scared than me. Fear is a weapon stronger than bullets. He closes the notebook, lies down on his bunk, stares at the ceiling. The mathematics of war have become clear to him now. The objective is not glory, not heroism, not even victory. The objective is pure survival, by any means necessary. And if that means becoming a monster, so be it. Better to be a living monster than a dead man with principles. Gunther will fly 780 missions before the war ends. He will be shot down 15 times. He will kill 174 men, and every night he will write their numbers in his book. But the war will end eventually. Germany will fall. And Gunther Schacht, the accountant-turned-killing machine, will face a question he never calculated. For what does a monster do when the war is over? The answer will involve an ocean crossing a ranch in Texas, a cowboy with a big heart, and 3 pieces of bacon that cost 30 cents. And that answer will prove that mathematics can measure bullets, but it cannot measure grace, cannot measure kindness, cannot measure the one force that can transform a killer back into a man, the force called redemption. But that story begins where this one ends, in May 1945, in a prisoner of war camp in southern Germany, where an American major named William Harrison will make Gunther an offer he never expected. An offer that will change everything. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. The day Germany surrenders. Gunther Schacht stands alone on the edge of a Bavarian airfield, hands in his pockets, watching the sunset over mountains that don't care who won the war. Behind him in the barracks, men are weeping, cursing, some are drinking themselves unconscious. One pilot, a boy of 19 who joined the Luftwaffe 3 months ago, has locked himself in the latrine with his Luger. Nobody is stopping him, but Gunther doesn't weep, doesn't curse, doesn't drink. He listens. For the first time in 6 years, the sky is silent. No engines, no propellers, no machine guns hammering, no explosions, no screaming metal, no radio chatter calling out bandits and break commands in Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Just silence. The kind of silence that existed before humans invented flying machines and turn the sky into an abattoir. A crow calls from the pine trees. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. These sounds seem impossibly loud in the absence of war. Gunther closes his eyes and breathes. The air smells of grass and diesel fuel and the faint chemical tang of aviation gasoline. But not smoke, not cordite, not burning flesh. He's alive. Against all mathematics, against all probability, against all logic, Gunther Schock has survived 780 combat missions, 15 times shot down, 174 kills. And here he stands, 28 years old, every limb intact, every sense functioning. Other pilots approach him, ask what he thinks will happen now, whether the Americans will execute them all, whether there's any point in going on. Gunther doesn't answer. He just keeps listening to the silence. Because for the first time since he pressed the firing button over Smolensk in October 1941, Gunther Schock feels something unexpected. Relief. The war is over. He lost. And he's grateful. 3 weeks later, Gunther sits on a wooden bunk in a prisoner of war compound outside Munich. Barbed wire, guard towers, rows of tents housing thousands of captured Luftwaffe personnel. The guards are American, young men from places with names like Ohio and Tennessee and Oregon. They carry rifles but mostly seem bored. The conditions are not what Gunther expected. He expected brutality, starvation, summary executions for the worst offenders. He's seen what happened to Soviet prisoners in German camps, seen the deliberate cruelty, the systematic dehumanization. But the Americans feed them, not well but adequately. Bread, tinned meat, weak coffee. They provide medical care for the wounded. They allow prisoners to write letters home, though nobody knows if the letters reach anyone. They separate officers from enlisted men, but don't torture either group. It's confusing. The propaganda said Americans were soft, decadent, mongrel nation with no culture and no spine. But these young guards treat their prisoners with distant professionalism. Not friendly, not cruel, just indifferent the way you'd treat livestock being held for processing. Gunther spends his days reading. Another prisoner had a copy of Thomas Jefferson's writings translated to German. Gunther reads about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, about self-evident truths and unalienable rights, about governments deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. He reads this and tries to reconcile it with what he was taught, that democracy is weakness, that the individual is nothing, that the Volk, the people, as a collective mass, is everything. But Jefferson's words have a strange power. They suggest that each person has inherent worth, not because of race, not because of nation, not because of blood, but simply because they exist. All men are created equal. The sentence stops him. He reads it again. All men, not all Germans, not all Aryans, all men. Does that include him, a killer of 174? Does that include the men he killed, Soviet pilots whose names he never learned? He's still pondering this when the American officer arrives. Major William Harrison is 42 years old, tall, rangy, with sun-weathered skin and pale blue eyes that miss nothing. He walks into the officer's section of the camp, wearing a clean uniform and carrying a folder under his arm. The guards snap to attention. The prisoners look up warily. Harrison speaks to the camp commandant in rapid English. The commandant nods and points. Harrison walks directly to Gunther's bunk. Lieutenant Schock, I need to speak with you. Come with me. Gunther follows him to a small office near the camp entrance. Inside, Harrison sits behind a desk and gestures for Gunther to sit opposite. He opens the folder. Inside are documents, service records, combat reports, all in German, all stamped with the American intelligence seals. Your file makes interesting reading, Lieutenant, or should I say, Staffelführer 174 confirmed victories, 780 combat missions, shot down 15 times and walked away every time. Some of my colleagues think you're the luckiest man alive. Others think you're the best pilot they have ever studied. Gunther says nothing. His English is limited but functional, enough to understand, not enough to respond with confidence. Harrison continues, I'm told you speak some English. Learned it in school before the war. That correct, yes, sir. Some. Not good. Good enough. Listen carefully, Shaq. The United States Army is sending a group of German prisoners to America, not combat troops. Educated men, engineers, technicians, men who can work without causing trouble. The program is voluntary. You go to America, you work on farms or in factories, help with the reconstruction effort. In exchange, you get better conditions, better food, and eventually repatriation when Germany is ready to receive you. Harrison pulls out another document, a list of names. Gunther recognizes some of them. Fellow pilots, men he flew with, survivors. Your name is on this list, Schock. Your record shows you are educated. No war crimes allegations. No SS affiliation. No Nazi party membership. You're exactly the kind of prisoner this program is designed for. So here's my question. You want to go to America? Gunther stares at the major. This makes no sense. Why would America want German prisoners on their soil? Why would they feed and house the men who tried to kill them? Why? He asks in halting English. Why America wants enemy? Harrison leans back in his chair. Fair question. Officially, because we need the labor. We're demobilizing millions of troops. Farms are short-handed. Factories need workers. You Germans work hard. That's valuable. He pauses. Studies Gunther with those pale eyes. But unofficially, because we believe in second chances. We believe a man who loses a war isn't automatically a monster. We believe even our enemies deserve to be treated like human beings. Call it American idealism if you want, or call it pragmatic self-interest. Either way, you have a choice. A choice. Gunther hasn't had a choice in 8 years, not since the conscription letter arrived in 1937. Everything since then has been orders. Duty, necessity, survival. Now this American officer is offering him a choice. Go to America or stay in this camp. It should be an easy decision. But Gunther hesitates. America is the enemy. America bombed German cities, killed German civilians, destroyed German industry, reduced his homeland to rubble. Why would he choose to go there? But Germany is also rubble. His home city of Schweidnitz is now Polish territory. His mother is missing, his father is dead. The store is gone. Everything is gone. What is he staying for? Harrison watches this calculation play out on Gunther's face. He's seen it before with other prisoners. The moment when a man realizes he has nothing left to lose. Think about it, Schock. You have 48 hours to decide. Talk to the other men on the list. Ask questions. But understand this, if you say yes, you're committed. No changing your mind once you're on the boat. Understood, Gunther nods. Harrison stands, extends his hand. Gunther stands as well, uncertain. Then following instinct, he shakes the American's hand. The grip is firm, equal, not the handshake of conqueror and conquered. The handshake of two men conducting business. Dismissed, Lieutenant. Gunther leaves the office, walks back to the barracks, lies on his bunk and stares at the canvas ceiling. America, the country he tried to destroy, the country that destroyed his country, the country whose pilots he killed, whose bombers he shot down, whose democracy he was trained to despise. That night he opens his notebook, flips past 174 entries, finds a blank page, writes June 3rd, 1945. Major Harrison offers choice. America. Why don't understand? But what is there to understand? Germany is finished. I am finished. Maybe America has answers I don't. He closes the book, makes his decision. He will go to America, not because he wants to, but because staying in the ruins of Germany means dying inside. At least in America, he'll be somewhere new, somewhere without ghosts. He doesn't know yet that America has plenty of ghosts, just different ones. And one of them is a cowboy named Buck Williams, who will teach him things no flight school ever could. The Liberty ship departs Bremerhaven on July 15, 1945. 200 German prisoners in the cargo holds. American guards on deck. 6 days to cross the Atlantic. Destination, New York Harbor. Gunther stands at the rail with a prisoner named Heinrich Bauer. Heinrich flew with him at Kursk, survived the war with 42 kills. Now they're both cargo being shipped to the victor's homeland. The sea is gray and restless. Gulls follow the ship crying like lost souls. Heinrich lights a cigarette, cups his hand against the wind. You think they'll really treat us fairly? Or is this just pretty words before they work us to death? Gunther watches the waves, I don't know. But I know what we did to Soviet prisoners. If they do to us what we did to them, we deserve it. Heinrich flinches. Don't say that. We followed orders. We were soldiers. So were they. Didn't save them. Below decks conditions are cramped but tolerable. The prisoners sleep in hammocks stacked 3 high. Meals are served twice daily. Bread, canned stew, weak coffee. Not good, not terrible. Survival rations. But something unexpected happens on the second day. An American sergeant, a black man named Williams with Mississippi in his accent, comes below decks and addresses the prisoners in broken German. You men want to come up on deck. Get some air. No trouble, you can walk around. Stay away from the rails. Don't touch nothing, and we're good. The prisoners exchange glances. This is a trick. Must be. But they're desperate for fresh air. Cautiously, they file up the ladder. On deck, they stand in groups blinking in the sunlight. The guards watch but don't interfere. Some prisoners walk the deck. Others just stand at the rail breathing clean air for the first time in weeks. Gunther ends up near the bow. Williams, the sergeant, is there checking equipment. He looks at Gunther, nods. You speak English, some. Little. Williams smiles. That's more than I speak German. You a pilot, yes. Fighter or bomber fighter? Williams nods again, thoughtful. My brother was a pilot. Tuskegee Airman, flew P-51s over Italy. Got shot down last March. Didn't make it. Gunther stiffens. He flew against P-51s. Shot down several. Could he have killed this man's brother? The probability is low but not zero. I am sorry. William shrugs. War is war. You did your job. He did his. Now the war's over and we're all just trying to get home. Or figure out what home means anymore. He walks away. Gunther stays at the rail gripping the cold metal. That man's brother is dead. Possibly by Gunther's hand. And yet William showed no hatred, no desire for revenge. Just weary acceptance. This is not what the propaganda described. Americans are supposed to be weak, emotional, unable to stomach the harsh realities of war. But Williams carried grief with dignity, acknowledged the enemy's humanity even while mourning his brother. What kind of country produces men like this? On the 4th day, a storm hits. The ship pitches and rolls. Most of the prisoners are seasick, vomiting into buckets. Gunther doesn't get sick. 6 years flying aerobatics trained his inner ear. But Heinrich is miserable, retching, and pale. An American medic comes through, handing out small white pills. Take this. Helps with the nausea. Heinrich is suspicious. What is it, medicine? Dramamine. Helps with seasickness? Or don't take it and keep puking, your choice. Heinrich takes the pill. So do others. Within an hour, the vomiting subsides. The prisoners look at each other in confusion. The Americans are medicating them. Caring for their comfort, this makes no sense. Unless the propaganda was wrong about everything. On the 6th day, land appears on the horizon. America, the new world, the mongrel nation, the land of Jaya and gangsters and decadent capitalism. All prisoners are called on deck as the ship enters New York Harbor. The guards position them along the rails. Nobody says why. But as they round a bend in the channel, someone gasps. There, rising from the morning mist, green copper oxidized by decades of salt air, is the Statue of Liberty. The great lady holding her torch high. The symbol of American freedom that every German schoolchild was taught to mock. But up close, she's not mockable. She's enormous, majestic. The torch catches the morning light and blazes like a beacon. At her feet, the pedestal inscription is too far to read, but Gunther knows the words from his contraband reading of American literature. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled mass, yearning to breathe free. Heinrich stands beside him, mouth open. I thought it would be smaller, like in the photographs. Gunther says nothing. He's thinking about the categorical imperative again, about universal laws. America built a statue, not to conquest, not to glory, not to the triumph of the strong over the weak, but to freedom, to the idea that people should be free. His country built monuments to war, to the Führer, to blood and soil and racial destiny. And where did that lead? To ruins, to graves, to him standing on an American ship as a prisoner. Sergeant Williams appears beside them. Beautiful, ain't she? That's what we fight for. Freedom, Not land, not power, just the right to be free. You understand that Gunther nods slowly. Beginning to, yes, beginning. The ship docks at Brooklyn Army Terminal. The prisoners are processed. Names, numbers, photographs, medical examinations, assignment papers. Gunther and 40 other men are designated for agricultural labor. Destination Texas. Texas. Gunther has heard of it. Cowboys, desert, oil fields, the land where Americans pretend to be frontier heroes. More propaganda images. But as he boards the train that will carry him south and west across this vast country, Gunther feels something he hasn't felt since before the war. Curiosity. What is this place really? What are these people really? Everything he was taught turned out to be lies. The Americans aren't soft, they aren't cruel, they're just people, doing what they think is right, making choices, living by values. The train pulls out of the station. Through the window, Gunther watches America scroll past. Cities, factories, farmland, endless farmland. This country is huge, prosperous, untouched by war. While Europe tore itself apart, America grew. Maybe that's the real lesson. Maybe the country that chose freedom over conquest won because freedom is actually stronger than force. Or maybe he's just tired. Tired of war, tired of killing, tired of calculations and mathematics and balancing ledgers of death. The train carries him south, through Pennsylvania, through Virginia, through Tennessee. The landscape changes, becomes warmer, greener, more open. Other prisoners play cards, sleep, talk quietly about what awaits them. Gunther reads. He's acquired a copy of the American Declaration of Independence from one of the guards. Reading it slowly, parsing each sentence, trying to understand the philosophy behind it. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Created equal, not born into hierarchy, not predetermined by race or class or bloodline. Equal. Is this true? Can this be true? His whole life he was taught the opposite, that some men are superior, that strength determines worth, that equality is a lie told by the weak to drag down the strong. But if that's true, why did Germany lose? If might makes right, why did the mighty Reich fall? Maybe because might doesn't make right. Maybe Jefferson was correct. Maybe equality is the self-evident truth, and everything else is the lie. The train crosses into Texas on the third day. The land flattens, becomes vast and brown and endless. The sky grows bigger. The air grows hotter. This is frontier country, the land of legends, cowboys and Indians and cattle drives and men who make their own rules. Gunther watches a hawk circling in the distance. Free. No war, no allegiance. Just a bird hunting mice in an eternal present. He envies that hawk. The train stops in a small town called Fredericksburg. German name. Ironic. 20 prisoners are offloaded here. Gunther among them. They're met by a U.S. Army lieutenant who addresses them through an interpreter. You men are being assigned to local ranches. You'll work as farmhands, housing and meals provided. You work 6 days a week. Sundays are rest. Any questions? Nobody has questions. They're too tired, too disoriented, too aware that they're prisoners and questions are dangerous. Trucks arrive, old Ford flatbeds with wooden sides. The prisoners are divided into groups. Gunther and 4 others are loaded onto a truck driven by a civilian. A man in his late 50s wearing a sweat-stained Stetson hat and dusty boots. He doesn't speak German, doesn't speak at all, just drives. They head west out of town. The road is dirt. The land is scrub brush and limestone outcroppings and occasional windmills pumping water from hidden aquifers. After 30 minutes, they turn onto a smaller road. Another 10 minutes and they arrive at a ranch. Wooden barn, corral with horses, small house with a porch, outbuildings, everything weathered and functional and honest. The truck stops. The driver gets out. Gunther and the others climb down stiffly. The driver looks them over with pale eyes that have seen too much sun. Then he speaks. His voice is rough, Texan accent thick as molasses. Welcome to the Williams Ranch. I'm Buck Williams. You'll work for me until this war is officially done and you can go home. I got simple rules. Work hard. Don't cause trouble. Don't try to run. There's nowhere to run to out here anyway. You'll die of thirst before you make it 10 miles. Understood? The interpreter translates. The prisoners nod. Buck nods back. Good. You'll bunk in the old bunkhouse. It's clean. Got beds, running water, toilet. You'll eat breakfast at 6. Work starts at 7. Lunch at noon. Dinner at 6. Sundays you rest. Do laundry. Write letters. Whatever you want as long as you don't leave the property. He pauses, looks at each man. You got questions you ask. You got problems you tell me. I don't tolerate laziness, but I don't tolerate cruelty either. You're prisoners, but you're also human beings. I'll treat you accordingly. You treat me and my property with respect, and we'll get along fine. Clear, the interpreter translates again. Gunther understands before the translation finishes. His English is better than he admitted to Major Harrison. He understands the words, but more importantly, he understands the tone. Buck Williams isn't angry, isn't hateful. He's just a practical man stating practical facts. You work, I'll treat you fairly. Simple transaction, no ideology, no propaganda. Just honest labor for honest treatment. Gunther hears himself speaking in English before he realizes he's decided to speak. Thank you, sir. We will work hard. Buck looks at him. A faint smile touches his weathered face. You speak English. Good. That'll make things easier. What's your name, son? Gunther Schack. Well, Mr. Schack, let me show you where you'll be staying. He leads them to the bunkhouse. It's not luxurious, but it's clean, 5 beds with real mattresses, a wood stove for heat, a sink with running water, a door that closes, privacy, dignity. Heinrich whispers in German. This is a prison. Gunther doesn't answer. He's too busy trying to reconcile what he expected with what he's seeing. He expected punishment, expected to be treated as the enemy deserves to be treated, expected cruelty, repaying cruelty. But Buck Williams just offered him basic human dignity, a clean place to sleep, fair treatment in exchange for honest work. What is America? What are these people that night lying on a real bed for the first time in months? Gunther opens his notebook, writes July 20th, 1945. Arrived Texas, Williams Ranch, expecting prison, found something else, don't know what to call it. Decency, strange concept. Don't understand these Americans. Tomorrow we'll work. We'll watch. We'll learn. He closes the book, closes his eyes. And for the first time since Stalingrad, Gunther Schack sleeps without dreaming of burning aircraft and falling men. Because for the first time in 6 years, he feels safe. Not because he's strong, not because he's armed, not because he's calculated every angle, but because someone showed him a kindness he didn't earn and doesn't deserve. And tomorrow morning, that same someone will show him something even more incomprehensible. 3 pieces of bacon, and the shattering realization that everything he fought for was built on lies. Morning comes to Texas with light that seems to set the horizon on fire. Gunther wakes to the sound of a rooster crowing and the smell of wood smoke drifting through the bunkhouse window. The other prisoners are still asleep. He dresses quietly in the work clothes Buck provided the night before. Denim trousers, cotton shirt, sturdy boots that fit better than any military issue he ever wore. Outside, the air is cool. In an hour, it will be scorching, but right now the world feels clean. He walks toward the main house, uncertain whether he's allowed, but drawn by the smell coming from the kitchen. Buck is there standing at a cast iron stove cooking. He looks up when Gunther appears in the doorway. You're up early? Good, come in. Breakfast is almost ready. Gunther enters. The kitchen is simple. Wooden table, chairs, shelves with dishes. A window overlooking the corral where horses stand in the morning light. Everything is worn but cared for. The home of a man who owns little but maintains what he has. Buck gestures to the table. Sit. I always make extra. Used to cook for ranch hands, but they're all off fighting your countrymen. Now I got your countrymen instead. Funny how things work out. Gunther sits, watches Buck work the stove, the sizzle of meat and hot fat, the smell filling the kitchen. His stomach clenches with hunger. Rations on the ship were adequate, but this is something else. This is real food. Buck slides a plate in front of him. 3 strips of bacon thick, cut fried crispy, 2 eggs fried with edges brown and lacy, hash browns golden and steaming, 2 pieces of toast with butter melting into the bread, A cup of coffee, black and strong. Gunther stares at the plate. This is more food than he's seen in one place since before Stalingrad. During the war, officers got extra rations, but nothing like this. This is abundance. Casual abundance, as if food is so plentiful that feeding prisoners like kings is normal. Buck sits across from him with his own plate, starts eating, notices Gunther hasn't moved. Something wrong? You don't like bacon? No, sir. This is for prisoners. Buck stops chewing, looks at Gunther. Something shifts in his expression. Understanding, sadness even. Son, I don't know what you went through over there. Don't know what you're expecting here. But on my ranch, a man who works gets fed. Doesn't matter if he's American or German or from the damn moon. You work, you eat. Simple as that. Now eat before it gets cold. Gunther picks up his fork. His hand trembles slightly. He cuts a piece of bacon, puts it in his mouth. The taste explodes. Salt, smoke, fat, crispy texture giving way to tender meat. It's not just food, it's a memory. His mother's kitchen before the war. Sunday mornings. The smell of cooking, the sound of his father reading the newspaper. Normal life before everything became propaganda and marching and killing. He closes his eyes, chews slowly, swallows. When he opens his eyes again, there are tears running down his face. He can't stop them. They come from somewhere deep, somewhere he thought he'd sealed off years ago. Buck doesn't comment, just continues eating, gives Gunther space to break. After a moment, Gunther wipes his face with his sleeve, looks at Buck. His voice when he speaks is rough. I didn't expect kindness. Buck takes a sip of coffee, sets down the cup, leans back in his chair. I know you didn't, and I know why. War makes men into animals, makes them forget that the enemy bleeds the same color blood, eats the same food, loves the same way. I was at WWII in 1918. France. Saw things that'd curl your hair. Saw what happens when men forget each other's humanity. He pauses, looks out the window at the horses. After that war, I came home and swore I'd never forget. Every man I meet, I try to see the person first. The human being. Not the uniform, not the flag, the person underneath. You're wearing prison clothes right now, but I look at you and I see a young man who's lost everything, who's scared and tired and trying to figure out what comes next. That's who I'm feeding, not the enemy, the person. Gunther eats his eggs. They taste like hope, like the possibility that the world might contain something other than violence and calculation and death. This is what you fought for. This kindness, Buck considers the question. Drinks more coffee. I fought so that kindness could exist, so that a man could run a ranch in peace, raise horses, cook breakfast, live free without someone telling him how to think or what to believe. That's what America's supposed to be. Not perfect. Hell, we mess up plenty. But the idea is sound. Every man gets to choose his own path, make his own mistakes, live his own life. He looks at Gunther directly. Your country tried to take that away. Not just from us, from everybody. Tried to impose one way of thinking, one way of being, and that's why you lost. Because freedom is stronger than force, always has been, always will be. Gunther finishes eating, sets down his fork, sits with those words. Freedom is stronger than force. He killed 174 men defending a government that believed the opposite. That believed force was everything. Power was everything. And where did that lead? To ruins, to defeat, to him sitting in a Texas kitchen eating bacon and questioning everything he once knew. Mr. Williams, I killed many men in the war. American pilots, British, Russian, 174 total. I counted them all. Does that change how you see me? Buck doesn't flinch, doesn't look away. War is war, son. You did what you thought was right at the time. Question is, what are you going to do now? You can carry that guilt like a weight around your neck and let it drown you. Or you can learn from it, become something better. Help build instead of destroy. That's your choice. Nobody else can make it for you. Gunther nods slowly. In 6 years of war, nobody gave him a choice. Orders came. He followed. Kill or be killed. Survive or die. But now Buck Williams, enemy nation victor, master is giving him a choice. Learn, change, become better? Can a killer become something else? Can mathematics become grace? He doesn't know. But for the first time since he pressed the firing button over Smolensk, he wants to find out. The days on the Williams Ranch settle into rhythm. Wake at dawn, breakfast with Buck, work until noon, lunch, more work, dinner at 6, evening free time, sleep, repeat. The work is physical, mending fences, feeding livestock, cleaning stables, repairing equipment. Gunther's body, conditioned by war, adapts quickly. But his mind struggles. This kind of labor is so different from flying. No speed, no adrenaline, no life or death calculations. Just steady, honest work that produces visible results. He fixes a section of fence and can see it standing straight and strong. He feeds horses and can watch them eat. He repairs a water pump and can hear it working. Cause and effect, input and output. But the output is creation, not destruction. One afternoon, 3 weeks after arrival, Buck finds him working alone on a fence post. Gunther is measuring the post placement with careful precision, ensuring perfect alignment. Buck watches for a moment, then laughs, not mockingly, warmly. You measure that post like you're building a cathedral. Gunther looks up. Precision matters. Buck nods. That's German efficiency. But son, sometimes good enough is good enough. This is a fence, not a fighter plane. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to keep the horses in. You understand, Gunther considers this. In the Luftwaffe, imprecision meant death. A calculation error of 2 degrees could mean missing the target or getting shot down. Everything had to be exact, perfect, optimal. But Buck is right. This is a fence, not a machine gun sight, not a navigation plot, just a fence, and good enough is actually good enough. He adjusts his approach, stops measuring to the millimeter, works faster, less precisely, but adequately. Buck claps him on the shoulder. There you go. You're learning. Learning what? That not everything is life or death. That you can relax. That perfection is the enemy of done. That's an American lesson, son. We don't aim for perfect. We aim for good enough, and we keep improving as we go. That evening, Gunther writes in his notebook, August 8th, 1945, learning to build instead of destroy. Learning that good enough is sometimes better than perfect. Learning that not every decision is life or death. Strange lessons, uncomfortable, but perhaps necessary. The next lesson comes 2 weeks later. Buck takes him out to the corral where a chestnut gelding stands waiting. You ever ride a horse? No, sir. Buck hands him a bridle. Well, you're going to learn. This here is Dusty. He's old gentle, won't throw you unless you do something real stupid. Put this on him. Gunther approaches the horse carefully. The animal is huge up close, 15 hands high, 1,000 pounds of muscle. But the eyes are calm, patient. Dusty stands still while Gunther fumbles with the bridle, eventually getting it on correctly. Buck shows him how to saddle, how to tighten the cinch, how to mount. Gunther climbs awkwardly into the saddle, grips the horn with white knuckles. Relax. The horse can feel your tension. You're wound tighter than a $2 watch. Breathe, sit back, let your hips move with him. Buck leads Dusty in a slow walk around the corral. Gunther tries to relax, tries to find the rhythm. It's like flying in a strange way. Both require balance. Both require trusting the machine beneath you. But flying was about control. This is about partnership. The horse isn't a machine. It's a living being with its own will. After 20 minutes, Buck opens the corral gate. You're ready. Take him out to the south pasture and back. Just walk, no hurry, alone. You'll be fine. Dusty knows the way. Just sit there and enjoy the ride. Gunther rides out of the corral, past the barn, past the bunkhouse where Heinrich and the others are playing cards, out onto the open range where the land stretches flat and endless under a sky so big it makes him dizzy. He walks Dusty across the pasture. No speed, no urgency, just a horse and a man moving through landscape unchanged for millennia. The sun is setting, painting the clouds orange and pink. A hawk circles overhead. Cattle low in the distance. For 6 years, Gunther flew through clouds at 300 miles per hour hunting men. Now he's riding a horse at 3 miles per hour hunting nothing, just existing. just being present in the moment. He realizes he's crying again, not from sadness, from something else. Relief maybe, or the absence of fear. For the first time since the war started, he's not calculating threats, not scanning for enemies, not preparing to kill or be killed. He's just riding a horse across Texas rangeland while the sun sets. This is peace. This is what Buck meant about freedom. The freedom to do something simple and pointless and beautiful just because you want to. When he returns to the ranch an hour later, Buck is waiting by the corral. How was it Gunther dismounts, stands holding Dusty's reins, tries to find words in English adequate to describe what he felt. Finally, he just says thank you. Buck understands. He smiles, nods, takes Dusty's reins. You did good, son. Real good. That night, Gunther doesn't write in his notebook. He just lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying the ride in his mind, trying to understand this strange alchemy that is happening inside him, the slow transformation from killing machine back into human being. October brings cooler weather. The brutal Texas heat breaks. Work on the ranch continues. Gunther has settled into the routine. His English improves through daily conversation with Buck. The other prisoners adapt as well. Heinrich has stopped talking about the war, stopped defending what they did. He just works. Like Gunther, he seems grateful for the chance to do something other than destroy. One evening, Buck invites Gunther to the main house after dinner. The other prisoners head to the bunkhouse, but Gunther follows Buck inside. They sit in the small living room. Buck has a radio playing low. News about the occupation of Germany, the Nuremberg trials being prepared. Buck turns off the radio, reaches into a drawer, and pulls out a document. Old paper, carefully preserved behind glass. He hands it to Gunther. Can you read that? Gunther looks at the document. English script, formal language. He reads slowly, translating in his mind. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. He looks up. This is Declaration of Independence. Buck nods. Original num. But it's a copy my grandfather brought from Philadelphia in 1876. Centennial celebration. Our family's most valuable possession. Not because it's worth money, because it's worth everything. He takes the document back, holds it carefully. You know what this says, Gunther? It really says, not just the words, the meaning underneath, that all men are created equal. That's part of it. But here's the part that matters most, right here. He points to a passage, reads aloud. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He looks at Gunther. Unalienable rights means nobody can take them away. Not a king, not a dictator, not a government, not even God himself, because he's the one who gave them to us in the first place. You understand what that means, Gunther thinks. It means individual has value above state, exactly. The state exists to protect individual rights, not the other way around. Your country had it backwards. Put the state above the individual, put the Volk above the person, put power above freedom, and that's why you lost. Buck stands, walks to the window, looks out at the darkening ranch. I'm telling you this because I think you're starting to understand. I see it in how you work, how you care for the horses, how you fixed that pump last week, not because I told you to, but because you saw it needed fixing. You're remembering how to be human, how to care about things beyond your own survival. He turns back to Gunther. But understanding isn't enough. You need to believe it, really believe it, that every person has worth, that freedom matters more than power, that kindness is strength, not weakness. Can you believe that Gunther sits with the question? Can he believe it? 6 years of war taught him the opposite, taught him that only the strong survive, that kindness gets you killed, that calculation and coldness are the only paths to safety. But Buck Williams is kind, and Buck survived his war, came home, built a life, found peace. So maybe kindness isn't weakness. Maybe it's the hardest strength of all, the strength to stay human when everything pushes you to become a monster. Mr. Williams, I killed 174 men, believing I was serving something greater than myself, believing the state mattered more than individuals, Believing strength was everything. He pauses, meets Buck's eyes. I was wrong, and those men are dead because I was wrong. Can I believe your declaration now? I want to, but I don't know if I deserve to. Buck crosses the room, sits down across from Gunther, leans forward. Son, that's the whole point. You don't have to deserve it. Rights aren't something you earn. They're something you have just by being human. Even you, even after everything. You're still a human being. You still have worth. You still get a second chance. He taps the declaration. That's what America is supposed to be, the land of second chances, the place where your past doesn't define your future. You were a killer. Okay, what are you going to be now? That's the only question that matters. Gunther feels something breaking inside him. Some wall he built around his heart after Karl died at Stalingrad. Some armor he constructed to survive the mathematics of death. It's cracking, crumbling, and behind it is pain, terrible pain. The pain of 174 ghosts. The pain of 6 years denying his own humanity. The pain of becoming exactly what he swore he'd never be. He bends forward, puts his face in his hands, and cries, really cries, not the silent tears from the bacon breakfast, but deep racking sobs that come from a place beyond words. Buck doesn't try to stop him, doesn't offer platitudes, just sits there, present, bearing witness to the breakdown and the breakthrough happening simultaneously. After long minutes, Gunther gets control, wipes his face, looks at Buck with red eyes. What do I do now? Buck smiles. Small, sad, knowing. You live, you learn, you help others, you defend what's worth defending. Not flags, not governments, freedom, dignity, human worth. You spend the rest of your life making sure that what you did in the war never happens again. Not here, not anywhere. That's how you honor the dead, by protecting the living. Gunther nods. It's not forgiveness. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. But it's direction, purpose, a path forward through the darkness. Can I keep this? The declaration. Buck shakes his head. Can't give you the family copy, but I'll get you another one. You should have it. Study it. Live by it. And when you go back to Germany, take it with you. Teach what you learned here. Be the voice saying there's a better way. I will. I promise. They sit together in the quiet house. Outside, coyotes yip in the distance. The wind rustles through mesquite trees. The eternal Texas night settles over the ranch. Gunther has crossed an ocean. But tonight he's crossed something farther. From one way of being to another. From the mathematics of death to the grace of second chances. He's not redeemed, not forgiven. But he's changed. And change, Buck Williams believes, is the first step toward redemption. June 1946. 10 months after arriving at the Williams Ranch. The war has been over for a year. Germany is occupied, divided, broken. Prisoners of war are being repatriated. It's time for Gunther to go home. The night before departure, Buck hosts a dinner. Gunther and the other prisoners. Simple meal. Steak, potatoes, cornbread, coffee. The men eat quietly. Tomorrow they return to a homeland that no longer exists, to cities reduced to rubble, to families scattered or dead, to a future uncertain and frightening. After dinner, Buck takes Gunther aside, hands him a package wrapped in brown paper. Don't open it until you're on the ship. Promise, I promise. They shake hands. Then Buck does something unexpected. He pulls Gunther into an embrace. A real hug. Father to son, teacher to student, friend to friend. You're a good man, Gunther Schock. Don't forget what you learned here. Don't forget that you have worth. Don't forget that freedom matters. And don't forget that it's never too late to choose differently. Gunther's voice breaks. I won't forget. Ever. The next morning, trucks arrive to take the prisoners back to the processing center. From there, ships to Germany. Gunther looks back at the ranch as they drive away. The barn, the corral, the house where Buck stands on the porch waving. This place saved his life, not physically, spiritually. It showed him that kindness exists, that second chances are real, that a man can change. On the ship crossing the Atlantic, Gunther opens Buck's package. Inside 3 items: a small American flag, a printed copy of the Declaration of Independence, a handwritten letter. Gunther unfolds the letter. reads Buck's careful script. Dear Gunther, you came to my ranch a broken man. You leave a brother. You can't change the past. You can't bring back the 174 men you killed, but you can shape the future. Germany needs men like you. Men who understand that strength isn't about domination. It's about protecting freedom. Men who know that real patriotism isn't blind loyalty. It's defending the values that make your country worth living in, even when your country fails to live up to them. Take these symbols of America with you, not because America is perfect. We're not. We have our own sins to answer for. But because these symbols represent ideas worth fighting for. Freedom, dignity, second chances, universal human rights. You fought for Germany once. Now fight for something bigger. Fight for humanity. Fight for the idea that all men are created equal. Fight so that what happened in your war never happens again. God bless you, son. You'll be in my prayers every day. Buck Williams. Gunther folds the letter, holds a small flag, looks out at the ocean. He's going home to ruins. But he's taking with him something more valuable than possessions. He's taking an education in grace, in second chances. In the revolutionary idea that human beings have inherent worth regardless of nationality or ideology or past mistakes. And he will spend the rest of his life teaching that lesson. The years pass. Gunther returns to Germany, finds his mother alive but damaged, helps her rebuild a small life in Munich, gets work as a clerk, then as a teacher, then as a professor of philosophy at the University of Munich. He writes articles, essays, books about the dangers of authoritarianism, about the value of democracy, about why Germany must never forget its crimes, but also about redemption, about second chances, about how a nation like a person can choose to become something better. His most controversial book, published in 1965, is titled The Accountant of Death. It's his memoir. Unflinching, honest. It details every mission, every kill, every calculation. And then it details Buck Williams, the ranch, the bacon, the declaration, the transformation. Critics call him a traitor. Supporters call him a prophet. Gunther calls himself neither. He's just a man trying to repay a debt he can never fully repay. The debt of grace. In May 1978, 33 years after the war ended, Gunther receives an invitation. A reunion of German prisoners who worked in America, held in Texas, in Fredericksburg. He almost doesn't go. He's 61 years old, comfortable in his Munich life, teaching, writing, grandchildren. But he thinks of Buck, wonders if the old cowboy is still alive, decides to find out. The reunion is small, maybe 50 former prisoners, sharing stories, showing photographs, laughing about how strange it was to work American ranches while their country burned. Gunther asks about Buck Williams. An organizer checks a list, gives him an address. The next day, Gunther rents a car and drives out to the ranch. It looks the same, a little more weathered, but fundamentally unchanged. Texas doesn't change quickly, doesn't change. He knocks on the door. A woman in her 50s answers, studies his face. You're Gunther, aren't you? Dad said you might come. Your father is alive, she smiles, tears in her eyes. Barely. He's 91, not much time left. But he's been waiting. Come in. Buck sits in a wheelchair on the back porch, shrunken, ancient, but the pale eyes are still sharp. He looks at Gunther. Recognition sparks. Well, I'll be damned. The pilot came back. Gunther crosses the porch, kneels beside the wheelchair, takes Buck's thin hand in both of his. I came back. They talk for 2 hours. About the years, about Germany's recovery, about America's struggles, about the work Gunther has done teaching peace, teaching freedom, teaching the lessons he learned on this very ranch. Buck listens, nods, smiles. You kept your promise. You remembered. Every day. Everything I've done started with 3 pieces of bacon you gave a prisoner who deserved nothing. Buck's hand tightens on Gunther's. You deserved a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. As the sun sets over the Texas rangeland, Buck speaks his final lesson. Gunther, I'm going to die soon. That's just the way of things. But before I do, I need you to know something. You weren't my prisoner. You were my student. And you turned out better than I ever hoped. Keep teaching freedom, keep defending dignity. That's real patriotism. Not flags, not governments, values. Gunther promises, until my last breath. 3 months later, a letter arrives from Texas. Buck Williams has died, peacefully, in his sleep. He left Gunther 3 things: his cowboy hat, his Medal of Honor from World War I, and a note: pass these to someone who will defend freedom. Gunther keeps the hat on his office wall, the medal in his desk drawer, and he passes the lessons forward to students, to readers, to anyone who will listen. In 2003, Gunther Schacht dies in Munich, 86 years old, surrounded by family. His last words are in English. Freedom isn't free, but it's always worth it. At his funeral, his grandson Lucas reads from Gunther's final journal entry. I killed 174 men fighting for tyranny. I spent the rest of my life fighting for freedom. The freedom I learned about in Texas from a cowboy who gave me bacon and eggs and taught me what human dignity means. If you want to honor my memory, defend freedom. Protect the weak. Treat your enemies with dignity. That's what America taught me. That's what I pass on to you. His grave marker displays 2 flags, German and American. Underneath an inscription, Gunther Schacht, 1917 to 2003, flew for Germany, learned from America, fought for freedom. And beside the headstone, someone has planted a single Texas bluebonnet. It blooms every spring, a small blue flower in German soil. A reminder that grace can cross oceans, that second chances exist, that a man who once calculated death with mathematical precision learned to calculate something far more important: the value of a human life, not as a target, but as a sacred trust, not as a number in a ledger, but as a name worth remembering, worth honoring, worth protecting. That's the lesson of Gunther Schacht, former Nazi ace, killer of 170 student of Buck Williams, defender of freedom, the accountant of death who learned to count blessings instead. And that lesson, like those Texas bluebonnets, keeps blooming, generation after generation, reminding us that it's never too late to change, never too late to choose grace over violence, never too late to become something better than what war made us. All it takes is courage, and 3 pieces of bacon, and one old cowboy willing to see the person underneath the uniform. That's the power of American values, not force, not conquest, not domination, just simple human decency, extended even to enemies, especially to enemies, because that's how you win a war that lasts beyond the shooting. That's how you transform killers into teachers. That's how you turn death into life. One breakfast at a time, one second chance at a time, one human connection at a time, until the mathematics of destruction become the mathematics of grace, and the accountant of death becomes the accountant of redemption. Counting not bodies but blessings, not kills but kindnesses, not enemies defeated but human beings restored. That's Gunther Schacht's legacy, and it started with 3 pieces of bacon on a Texas morning in 1945, when one enemy showed another what America really means.